There is a quarter-acre lot in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania that produces more than it consumes. More food than the family that lives there can eat. More water than they need. More heat than the house requires. More electricity than the meter reads. The meter reads 0. The property taxes are the only bill that arrives. Everything else is produced on this piece of land, smaller than a standard American suburban lot, managed by a family refining this system for 3 generations. I have spent the last 11 videos describing each component. This video is what I have been building toward. This is the complete system on the specific property size that most of this audience owns. A quarter acre, 10,190 square feet, the size of 2.5 basketball courts, small enough to mow in an afternoon, large enough to achieve nearly complete household independence from every utility and every grocery bill you currently pay. Before the layout, I need to give you the total number that has been accumulating across this series. The savings of the Amish system over a mortgage life compared to the standard American approach. Water, $33,000. Electricity, $45,000. Heating and cooling, $38,000. Pest control, $18,360. Grocery bills, $144,000. Soil, supplements, mold remediation, wood treatment, and engine maintenance add up to thousands more. Total savings over 30 years, approximately $350,000, from a piece of land the size of 2 basketball courts, against an investment of $5,000 to $8,000. This is the difference between transferring wealth and keeping it. The Amish family set out to feed their family. The savings are the consequence of doing that correctly. It happens when you stop outsourcing what the earth provides and start maintaining the relationships the earth requires. Now let me show you the layout. 100 feet wide by 109 feet deep. I'll show you how every system fits. I will give you the sequence of implementation so that each system you build makes the next one easier. Start before you plant anything or build anything. Start with orientation. Walk your property and determine true south, not magnetic south. True south, adjusted for your location's magnetic declination. In most of the eastern United States, the adjustment is between 8 and 15 degrees west. A compass app on your phone will give you magnetic south. A quick search for your location's magnetic declination will give you the correction. Mark true south on your property. Everything that follows is organized around that axis. The house itself, if you are building new, goes with its longest axis running east to west. The largest wall faces south. This is the passive solar orientation. If you already have a house that faces a different direction, you cannot rotate it. But you can orient every element you add, every garden bed, every outbuilding, to take maximum advantage of the south exposure. A house facing east has a south-facing wall along its left side. That wall is your solar resource. Work from it. The first system to install is the one that takes the longest to develop, the biochar soil building program. Identify every inch of ground that will eventually be garden bed. Start building the soil now even before the beds are formally established. Every fall burn and every spring incorporation of biochar, worm castings, and cover crop residue is a deposit into a biological bank account. A bed you start building now will be significantly more productive in year 3 than in year 1. Start immediately. Year 1, establish the beds. Mark out your permanent growing areas using the intensive permanent bed system. On a quarter-acre lot with a standard house footprint, you have approximately 7,000 square feet of workable outdoor space. Standard setbacks and path maintenance account for 2,000. You have 5,000 square feet of potentially productive space. Start with 800 to 1,200 square feet of permanent beds along your south-facing fence line and in the sunniest areas. Establish them properly with good soil building. Let the remainder be lawn while you develop the system incrementally. Now I want to address the HOA and zoning question, as it is the most common practical obstacle raised in the comments. Homeowners association rules vary. Some prohibit vegetable gardens in front yards. Some require grass coverage minimums. Almost none restrict backyard systems, cisterns, mushroom logs, permanent beds along a fence, or solar panels on a back roof. Most of this series content applies to the portion of your property not visible from the street and not subject to aesthetic restrictions. For front yard restrictions specifically, 12 states have passed legislation since 2010, explicitly prohibiting HOAs and local governments from banning food gardens on residential property. Florida, California, Nevada, Colorado, Vermont, Oregon, and 6 others have some form of edible garden protection law on the books. If you live in one of those states, your HOA cannot legally prevent you from growing food in your front yard regardless of their covenants. If you do not, the backyard is almost certainly unrestricted. The zoning question is similarly more accessible than it appears. Residential zoning codes address land use and building placement. They do not, in most jurisdictions, regulate what you grow or how you collect rainfall. The systems requiring permits, like earth tubes or new cisterns, are the minority. The majority, like biochar and fermentation, require no permit at all. These represent the majority of the savings in this series, and they are available to every property owner in America, regardless of regulatory environment. Those 800 to 2,200 square feet of properly established intensive permanent beds will produce enough vegetables to meaningfully supplement a family of 4's diet. Combined with the fermentation cellar that preserves the harvest through winter, your household food production calendar runs 12 months. Year 1 also establishes the rainwater system. Identify your largest roof area and connect your primary downspout to a first flush diverter. An above-ground 275-gallon IBC tank costs approximately $150 used. It holds enough water to run your garden through 3 to 4 weeks of drought. Install one this fall. Your benefit: free irrigation water for the next 25 years, plus the satisfaction of watching rain fill your tank. Year 2 begins the protein systems, mushroom logs, and fermentation. These require minimal space, and the return begins within 6 to 12 months. The mushroom logs go in the shadiest corner of your property. That corner was producing nothing. Now it produces protein and vitamin D. Fermentation requires no outdoor space. One mason jar becomes 6, then 20, constituting a meaningful seasonal food reserve by year 3. The mother brine you save makes the next batch better. By year 3, your grocery bill in winter has measurably declined. Year 2 also begins the energy systems. If your roof has adequate south-facing exposure, 2 to 4 solar panels on a simple ground-mounted frame. Establish your initial generation capacity. 4 panels at 400 watts each, 1,600 watts total, costs approximately $1,200 for the panels alone. Add a charge controller and 2 to 4 deep-cycle batteries, and you have a functional off-grid power system for lighting and small appliances. It powers your battery bank, your LED lights, your phone chargers, and your laptop. It reduces your utility draw and proves the system works. Year 3 introduces thermal interventions. The white roof treatment, $14 and one Saturday. The radiant barrier foil in the attic, $50. The water container thermal mass wall in your south-facing living room, $30 and one afternoon. These interventions produce heating and cooling load reduction. The less heating and cooling your house requires, the fewer solar panels and storage batteries you need. Efficiency multiplies the value of every dollar spent. Year 3 also plants the perennial food systems, fruit trees along the south fence, and berry bushes along the east and west boundaries. A grape or kiwi vine on a south-facing trellis provides summer shade and drops leaves in fall to allow winter solar gain. A dwarf apple tree on a quarter-acre lot produces 40 to 60 pounds of apples per year. One tree, once planted, producing food indefinitely. The pest control system is installed in Year 3. Diatomaceous earth to every foundation perimeter and entry point. One afternoon, $8. Year 4 begins the water system expansion. Replace above-ground tanks with an in-ground cistern sized at 1,200 to 2,000 gallons. Buried below the frost line, it stays cool and remains functional through winter. Your irrigation demand is now fully covered by collected rainfall. Year 4 also expands the energy system. 2 to 4 additional panels bring your total capacity to 2,400 to 3,200 watts. Upgrade the battery bank to 8 batteries. Now your solar system covers lighting, refrigeration, electronics, and small appliances. Your grid draw has dropped significantly. A solar hot water system installed in year 4, 2 evacuated tube collectors on the south-facing roof section, and an insulated storage tank in the basement. A small pump circulating fluid between them covers 60 to 80% of your hot water demand for approximately $800 in materials. The electric water heater drops to backup status. Your grid draw drops again. Year 5 is maintenance and optimization. You have been running all the core systems for 3 to 4 years by now. You know what your soil produces and what it still needs. You know which beds perform best and which need additional biological investment. You know your rainwater collection balance across seasons. You know your energy production and consumption balance. Year 5 is the year you optimize what you have rather than adding new systems. It is the year you refine the fermentation culture and assess the mushroom logs that are mid-cycle in your specific microclimate. The perennial food system begins producing meaningfully, and the grocery bill shows the effect. On a quarter-acre lot, you have achieved independence. Water. Irrigation demand entirely covered by collected rainfall. Municipal water use reduced by 60% from the baseline year. Electricity. Grid draw reduced by 60 to 70%. Heating and cooling, reduced by 40 to 60% from thermal interventions and passive solar. Food, 40 to 60% of vegetable consumption from the home-growing system. Pest control and soil amendments now have zero ongoing cost. The cumulative savings by year 5, $15,000 to $25,000. By year 30, $350,000. These are not projections, they are calculated from conservative averages. I know the objection that comes most consistently. The objection is time. I do not have time for all of this. I work full-time. The Amish family on the quarter-acre property I described does not spend every weekend maintaining their systems. They spend 4 to 6 hours per week. That is less time than the average American spends watching television in a single day. These systems are maintenance relationships, not labor-intensive chores. The garden requires attention in season. Fermentation requires 1 afternoon per month. Solar requires cleaning twice a year. Biochar requires 1 burn in fall. But this knowledge goes further when it spreads beyond a single household. The Amish model is the best demonstration of what that looks like. The Amish do not do this alone. They never have. The barn raising is not a metaphor, it is a practice. When a family needs to build, the community comes. When a family's harvest exceeds their storage capacity, they share and preserve together. When a family's fermentation culture produces an exceptional batch, they share the mother brine with neighbors. When a tree service delivers more logs than one family can inoculate, the excess goes to 3 neighbors who have been watching the mushroom project develop. The knowledge multiplies through the community because the community functions as a unit rather than as a collection of competing households. 5 households on the same block, each running the systems described in this series on their individual quarter acres, produce a combined growing area of 5 acres. 1 household specializes in leafy greens. 1 specializes in root vegetables. 1 maintains the largest fermentation program. 1 focuses on fruit and perennial production. 1 manages the largest solar and energy system. They trade, share, and support each other's systems. The diversity of production across 5 households eliminates the gaps that a single household operating in isolation cannot cover. The specialization improves quality and efficiency across all 5. The community knowledge pool grows faster than any individual household's knowledge can grow alone. This is not a vision. This is what the Amish communities in Lancaster County and Holmes County have been doing for 200 years. And it is why the knowledge I have been describing across this series persisted in those communities when it disappeared everywhere else. Not just because individual families maintained individual practices, because the community maintained the knowledge collectively, refining through collaborative practice. You cannot replicate an Amish community from 12 videos and a comment section, but you can find 1 neighbor who is willing to start. 1 neighbor, 1 conversation. 1 shared mushroom log inoculation afternoon, 1 jar of fermentation mother brine passed over the fence. That is how it starts. That is how it has always started. 2 households learning together learn faster than either household learning alone. 5 households learning together produce something that approaches the resilience of what the Lancaster County family has been building for 3 generations. The knowledge is out. The systems work. The quarter acre is large enough. The time investment is manageable. The cost is within reach of virtually any homeowner in this country. What remains is the decision to begin. The front-loaded investment is the first 2 to 3 years of establishment. During that period, you will spend more time and money. Building the beds, installing the water system, inoculating the logs, you are purchasing $350,000 in savings over 30 years, in the first 2 to 3 years. And then the systems run. Let me give you the complete year-by-year cost summary so you can see what the front-loaded investment actually looks like. Year 1, soil building program initiated with biochar barrel, worm bin, first cover crop seed, rainwater collection tank, first flush diverter, garden bed establishment materials. Total year 1, approximately $272. Year 2, mushroom log spawn and wax, fermentation starter supplies, first solar panels and charge controller, LED lighting conversion. Total year 2, approximately $1,117. Year 3, white roof lime treatment, radiant barrier foil, thermal mass water containers, diatomaceous earth and duster, perennial plantings. Total year 3, approximately $320. Year 4, solar system expansion, solar hot water system, cistern upgrade if budget allows. Total year 4, approximately $1,600 to $2,600. Every dollar spent in that window begins generating returns from the moment it is deployed. The rainwater system saves from the first rainfall. The lime wash saves from the first summer. Fermentation saves from the first jar you don't buy. The savings are not deferred to year 30. They begin in month 1 and compound across the decades that follow. That is the math of a quarter acre running the complete Amish system. Front-loaded with knowledge and a small materials investment. Back-loaded with 30 years of compounding returns on relationships with physics, biology, and land that the industrial system was built to replace. The Amish chose to maintain them. Now you know how. The rest is yours. The Amish family has been running their systems for 3 generations. The grandmother who established the fermentation mother brine is 3 people back. The grandfather who planted the first fruit trees died before those trees reached full production. The great-grandfather's cistern is still full every April. That is the time horizon. Not quarterly, not annually, generationally. You are not building for your convenience, but for your children's inheritance. These systems cannot be inflated away, taxed as income, or seized by a creditor. They cannot be disrupted by a distant supply chain event. The dwarf apple tree you plant this fall will produce its first meaningful harvest in year 4. It will produce 60 pounds of fruit by year 8. It will still be producing when your children are adults. If they maintain it, it will produce for your grandchildren. 1 tree. Fruit for 60 years. The biochar you incorporate into your garden beds this fall will still be in that soil in 100 years. Still providing habitat for soil biology, still improving water retention, still building toward the organic matter percentages that an Ohio State soil scientist described as essentially impossible in a field that has been building them continuously for 60 years. You will not live to see what your soil becomes if you start this fall and your children's children continue, but you will live to see the 30-year version of it, and the 30-year version will be producing food that the grocery store in your town cannot match at any price, because the biology in your soil will have been developing for 3 decades, in alignment with your specific microclimate, your specific water chemistry, your specific seed selection, and the specific community of organisms that has been cultivated through 3 decades of consistent attention. That is not a fantasy. That is what the Lancaster County family has. And they built it 1 season at a time, starting before anyone reading these words was born, and maintained it through changes in the economy, changes in the culture, changes in what their neighbors thought was normal and modern and correct. They maintained it because the maintenance produced results that no alternative could match. Because the wall they built in 1889 is still warm in January. Because the cistern is still full in April. Because the fermentation culture still makes better sauerkraut than anything in the store. Because the soil still grows food without inputs that have been purchased from anyone. Because the knowledge is real, and the physics is real, and the biology is real, and nothing that any industry has decided about how American households should operate has ever changed any of that. A quarter acre, 10,190 square feet, a piece of land the size of 2.5 basketball courts. Enough, as the family in Lancaster County has demonstrated for 3 generations, to achieve nearly complete independence from every utility bill, every pest control contract, every supplement subscription, and every grocery aisle. That modern industrial civilization has decided you cannot live without. You can live without them. The Amish always have. The physics was always on their side. The biology was always on their side. The only thing that was ever missing was the knowledge. And now, you have that too. Drop in the comments what you have already started from this series. I want to know which system was first. Which one changed how you think about your property? Which one you are building this weekend? Because the comments on this channel have become something I did not expect when I started it. A record. A map of people across this country who are quietly, practically, without asking permission from anyone, re-establishing the relationships with land and physics and biology that their great-grandparents maintained as a matter of course, and that someone decided were no longer profitable to teach. They were wrong about whether those relationships mattered. The quarter acre in Lancaster County proves it every season. And so, increasingly, do the comments below these videos. Build something this weekend. Something small, something real, something that works without a monthly payment. The knowledge is yours, the land is yours. The sun is already rising on your roof. It has been rising there every morning waiting for you to decide to use it.